I want to mention one particular thing that I found is a very good litmus paper, the test for whether there's ego or not, because I resonated with Bill's comment about there can be an exterior show of humility, but inside, of course, it hasn't yet developed in the way that it should. But I'm thinking this is how I'm supposed to be if I'm humble, and so I'm pretending, which, like you said, is some effort of some type anyway, but not really the natural state. And the one thing that is a big, big signal that there's ego there is pain, sorrow. If there are things happening that I'm taking any pain or any sorrow from, because this one said this, or I wasn't given this opportunity, or this thing happened, or the other thing happened, for sure there's ego there. Because in that state of humility, I have my inner state of self-respect, my own dignity, and I'm not waiting for either a pat on my back or somebody to hand me roses to say how good I was. I'm really not waiting for anybody to prop me up and applaud. And if they're not applauding, that's also okay. And always this concept of learning and moving forward. But ego brings pain, and ego gets me stuck, and I'm not moving forward in the way that Baba wants me to. So really, it's a very, very simple checkpoint. If I'm going through pain, that's it. That's my ego that's being hurt. And so sometimes it's painful when things come to you, but out of that, you learn, and out of that, you come out brighter and better. And if I'm still stuck in that self-pity or sorrow, that's a big, big signal that I'm still stuck in the ego. And this question about knowing when to put others forward or what, I want to share a couple of experiences. For a long time, I was basically the one translator for Bap Dada. Whenever I was there in Madhuban, and then Shiluben at first was away, then she came back from Mauritius, and then she took it on in a big way. But before Shiluben had arrived, there was another sister who went to Didi to say, I want to do this. And Didi called me and said, this person is saying this, and I think you should let her do the translation. And think about all the other opportunities you have, and she doesn't, for various reasons. And when that Didi said that to me, I realized I have a huge amount of opportunity, and I know that that soul doesn't. And so I was able to say to Didi, that's fine, it's okay. And the other sister, of course, was very, very happy that Didi had organized it. But I was very grateful that Didi had made me aware that if I have other opportunities, then a soul who doesn't have another opportunity, it would be good to help them to move forward, to give them that opportunity. And like Maureen said, it is a whole question of learning when to step away and when to let another move forward, or am I blocking somebody's movement? Another criteria that I've used is, does the soul have the possibility of taking on a role that I'm playing at this moment? And they'll only shine when I move out of the way. But you can see that they do have that capacity, and giving them an opportunity to do something is then giving me contentment. It actually makes me very happy that another person does have those qualifications. And yes, they're not going to be perfect first time, but they'll learn. I had to learn. They'll learn too. And so from many, many in this group, I see drama, fortune, we were the first in the country, we were the first in the city, or we were the first wherever. A lot of souls like that. And so we've had that fortune that was given to us as a gift. There was nobody else. And Baba said to me, come, you do it. And I had the courage to say yes to Baba, and I moved. And Baba gave me 1,000-fold help. But at this point, maybe there are others who can do the same job, and they're not perfect, but I wasn't perfect when I started. And so I think this is a little question to ask myself. Are there others who have the capacity and the qualifications and could move forward if they had that opportunity? And I like very much this point that Wendy's making about self-respect, because when I thought about how much opportunity I did have already, and so letting go of this one thing was not such a big deal. It was a very sweet role to play, but I could do without because I already had so many other things. So I think that putting it that way, at that point for me, made it clear that it is something that should be passed on. And so today also this question, are there others who could do this? And if there are, well, why not? Let them try something. And then, of course, there's the balance. What is the quality of their interaction with others in whatever it is they're doing? What is their track record so far? And that's what I have to balance with, not just the question of my own dignity or not, but it's not just skills. Definitely not. You see that in the Logic world also. The way they put it is that if you've got IQ, you've got the intelligence, you've got the capacity. But if you don't have EQ, the emotional quotient, I've understood. I don't know that Logic people would put it exactly in this way, but in the context of my spiritual understanding, SQ is at the top, and that means knowing myself and my relationship with myself. But in between, there's also the question of relationship with others. And so somebody has all the skills in the world, but they don't have this possibility of communicating and creating those relationships, then putting someone in a key role means that there's going to be a disaster. And the emotional quotient is absolutely connected with the spiritual. To whatever extent I know myself and I'm able to manage myself. Somebody wrote about the realization of my own emotions. Well, yes, definitely that's part of the whole subject of SQ. How deeply do I know myself, my weaknesses and my strengths, and self-dignity, and that whole list of titles, etc. Yes, I can aspire to some, but also when I can't, let me be able to acknowledge that. And so to recognize my own goodness, but also to recognize my own weakness, that's very much part of the stable process that's going to enable me to move forward. If I think I'm great and nobody else can convince me otherwise, even circumstances can't convince me otherwise, it's going to be an issue. Or if I'm lacking in self-esteem when I'm down there, then I don't have the spiritual power to be able to do a task that Baba wants, or to enable others to do a task and to move forward in that way. So many balances, but in this particular situation of giving others the opportunity, I'm looking at their skills, but I'm also looking at their capacity for relationships. And if the possibility is there, they haven't developed it fully because they haven't been thrust into that position. For a lot of us, I mean, I was thrust onto the stage when I was so scared of the stage and speaking in front of two people. And it was a surrender of my intellect to God when I said, okay, I'll do it. So there certainly was no ego involved there. It was a real surrender of ego. And at that moment, then things began to shift and develop. And today, no, I'm not scared of the microphone or the stage or whatever, but I feel that there's so many opportunities for others to grow now. But if it's a position of responsibility, it's also then dependent on to what extent they know themselves, and according to that, to what extent they're able to have and engage in good relationships with others. Because a task at this moment is really a task in which cooperation is required. Very few tasks in which I can do just on my own, but so many tasks in terms of service that needs everyone to pull their weight together. And so I think that that discernment is a very important aspect. But yes, let me each morning check my own degree of self-respect and humility. And to a certain extent, in fact, to a major extent, both go together. When truly my self-respect is based on the spiritual factors that Baba's talked to me about and told me about, then there's no ego there. You know, when I think of myself as being the master almighty authority, that's a big one. And so how can I ever think about it without thinking of Baba giving this to me as an inheritance or as a blessing? It's definitely not something that I have or any other human being has. And so all the titles that Baba gives me are actually based on very deep spiritual awareness and humility. And then those qualities actually manifest. Otherwise, Baba's calling me an angel, and I see that I'm not an angel. But yes, Baba's saying, you can be. Your subtle form, your shining form is there in the subtle region. And so let me let go of the ego that's saying, well, I want a position here, but that's a trap. But let me be the angel. And I can only be the angel when I truly have changed my own feelings about others. And there's that benevolence and good wishes and care and love for others. So Baba's packaging is very beautiful. And humility is greatness. And we've seen that. Last thing that I want to say, I saw humility demonstrated by all the daddies in a beautiful way. Daddy Janki again and again. Daddy Kumarka, and some of you know this story. We were in a meeting and Daddy was chairing the meeting. And it was a few people from Bharat, a few more from abroad. And it was something to do with service abroad. And one person in the meeting, when Daddy asked that individual, would you like to speak to this? They took it off at a tangent and they literally were commenting and critical about Daddy herself. Daddy's face did not change, her behavior did not change, the vibration didn't change. She simply waited. And when the person ran out of steam, she then said, should we move to the second topic? We moved to the second topic. And to my shock and surprise, she asked the same person who had been ranting and railing to again open the second subject. Now, if that were me, I would have got so scared of this person's reactions and so hurt by them that I would not have dared to say to this individual, please begin the conversation on the second topic. I would have avoided him. But Daddy, and her humility and her greatness, she spoke to that same individual and said, what would you like to say about this one? And I think the shock of their arrogance and anger by then must have hit them, because then they were very humble and they spoke very softly and the meeting could continue. And if Daddy actually had not done that, that lingering vibration of ego and anger would have still been present in the room. But the fact that she went back to the person and the person had had a realization in that short spell of time, because they're a great yogi after all, it dissipated that previous energy and it was lovely. The meeting could carry on as normal as if nothing had happened. So a huge lesson for me at that time. And it's one that I've never forgotten. And I sometimes remember to do the same. Not always, but getting better and better at it. And so in the face of anger and ego, can I keep my dignity and self-respect and carry Baba's work forward with that inner greatness and humility? So going deeper within myself to that point of awareness where I am. I am Baba's child. I am Baba's instrument. And I hold Baba in front of me. And from Baba, absorb the love, the joy, the power that Baba wants to give me. And as I absorb this within myself, I realize the amazing gifts that Baba is sharing with me. And the soul is humbled that the one who is the Supreme found me, made me belong to him, and has entrusted me with the task of world renewal. Could I have imagined that I could play such a role? I thought God can do everything. And yet God is now saying to me, I need your help. I need you to be my instrument. Appreciating how the one who is the Almighty is the one who is so humble that he offers me this opportunity to create my fortune. Appreciating God's greatness, the greatness of the task, and my fortune. I feel the joy and the humility to say yes to Baba. Om Shanti.